Hello and welcome to my reflective presentation of working with Yorkshire Cyclo-cross. In the presentation coming, I will be discussing the group's overall objective, but centralising on my specific task within the group and what I took away from that experience. So just to give a little bit of context before we get into the reflection itself, the main objective of this project was to address a very real problem which is facing British competitive cycling right now. And that problem is that participation is declining across most areas of the sport. More specifically, we were asked by the client to create a plan which is focused on cyclo-cross. The idea was to look at how we could increase the number of riders, how we could keep existing competitors coming back to events, and most importantly, how we could stop the drop off in numbers, which tends to happen as riders move from one age category onto the next. I'll be honest, when I first looked at the brief, it wasn't immediately obvious what was being asked of us. It took a little bit of time to get to grips with the scale of what we were trying to solve, but my initial instinct upon seeing the brief was to lean towards a social media focused approach as a way of attracting both new riders and retaining ones that were already involved in cyclocross. So within our group of 11, I was one of 3 marketing and promotions leads. You can see on the screen here the final piece of work that was submitted to the client, and my specific contribution to that sits within the content strategy plan, which you can see towards the bottom of the document in the table. As part of the marketing and promotions team, our primary responsibility was to develop that content strategy, and as I mentioned previously, the direction we took was heavily focused on social media. The 3 of us within the subgroup worked together to shape the overall plan, which was an integral contribution to the work submitted by the group to Yorkshire Cyclo-cross. This is one of my sections completed in the content strategy plan that was produced. It provides a framework of what Yorkshire Cyclo-cross could post 2 weeks before an event starting. The main objective of the plan for posting at this time is to grow awareness for some of its competitors in cyclo-cross races and ultimately put individuals into the spotlight. We encourage the client to post across multiple platforms to reach a greater audience. As I stated, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for this section. I gave examples of key individuals in cyclo-cross, which the client provided to us via email. These names listed were included as they match the key demographic of participant drop-off, but also covers other ages and genders that are involved in the sport. I put forth that the personality of the individuals featured is key, with an expression of genuine personality being held in high regard by audiences. This is because it displays a level of relatability to the audience. I encouraged Yorkshire Cyclo-cross should bring light to individuals of a demographic that they wish to promote to showcase their talent. This may form riders into role models and lead to greater levels of participation through inspiring others that see the content. I provided a link to a video of similar content as a genuine guideline for what is needed to be produced to get the best outcome from the posts. So this is my other section created for the content plan. This time I've crafted it to be posted closer to the date of a cyclo-cross event. The aim of these posts 1 week away from an event starting was simply just to build a feeling of excitement ahead of the race. I included a prompt question to the audience regarding if they're participating in the race or not. This not only drives engagement levels, but also may encourage those who are considering taking part but are unsure to sign up for the events in future. Some other key points that I made was to include high action content, highlight reels, with music that would fit the high intensity of cyclo-cross highlights. I also linked a TikTok post and a YouTube highlight reel to give a couple of different visual examples of the type of content to post 1 week ahead of an event starting. So now to move on to my first key takeaway from our involvement with Yorkshire Cyclo-cross. In structure in this reflection, I've drawn upon the aspects of Gibbs' reflective cycle, as outlined in his Guide to Teaching and Learning. This framework provides a systematic approach to analysing experiences and I felt it was particularly well suited to unpacking some of the complexities in this project. The content strategy plan that our group produced was heavily social media focused. In isolation, this might appear to be a reasonable approach to content strategy. However, when considered in the context of Yorkshire Cyclo-cross, it became clear that this direction was misaligned. The YCCA is a charitable organisation whose membership is largely composed of older individuals. Many of these have little to no experience with social media platforms. The feedback we received from the YCCA was direct and telling that the plan felt daunting to an organisation with no experience in the social media world whatsoever. This was a significant signal that we'd misjudged the brief that was given to us. But on a personal level, I felt a sense of failure when the feedback came through. As a member of the subgroup responsible for the development of the social media strategy, it was difficult not to internalise that criticism. There was a sense of having let the client down, having produced work that, despite the effort invested, didn't serve their needs. However, alongside that feeling of failure, I also experienced a sense of being somewhat irreproachable for this error. The decision to centre the content plan around social media was not one that I made individually. It was a collective decision determined at a broader group level, and my role was simply to deliver that within the framework, which I believe I did to a good standard. This tension between feeling responsible yet also removed from fault is worth examining carefully. Ultimately, I had delivered what was asked of me. My output in terms of quality and effort wasn't flawed. It was an issue of appropriateness to the client rather than the quality of the output. The strategy wasn't wrong in the sense, but it was wrong for the YCCA. The problem perhaps deriving from a wider group decision. Reflecting on why this misalignment occurred, it's useful to consider Rogers' diffusion of innovations theory. Yorkshire Cyclo-cross's member demographic may be categorised as laggards in relation to social media adoption, as being the most likely to retain their traditional methods and resist significant change. This isn't a criticism, but it's an important contextual factor that we should have informed ourselves on to form our strategic thinking. Had we considered where the YCCA sat on Rogers' adoption curve, it would have become clear far earlier that a social media heavy strategy was unlikely to be appropriate for this client. From this, I recognised that the output I contributed towards was somewhat null in its practical impact. The YCCA lacked both the experience and financial resources to run a social media campaign, and as a charitable organisation, they weren't in a position to hire a social media manager to run it. The intention of producing an effective plan for the client was therefore not achieved. A plan that can't be executed is ultimately just null. In future, I propose that a much deeper investigation into the client's capabilities, values, and resources is conducted before any major decisions are made. A genuine understanding of who the client is, with their capacity, digital capabilities, and appetite to make a change, is vital for producing work that isn't just well crafted, but appropriate for the organisation. Gibbs' reflective cycle has been utilised again to structure the second reflection of my key takeaways from this task. During the assignment of tasks to different roles within our group, the marketing and promotions team, which I was a part of, was assigned the task of creating the content strategy plan as a group of 3. We then had to come together and divide the workload evenly based on our ideas for the content model. The challenge that we faced was ensuring the workload was divided equally, with an ultimate decision coming from us and not the chairman of our group. Our content plan featured 6 rows of information, including the time of posting, the content that should be posted, and examples of similar content with links to these posts. I felt a sense of collaborative ownership off the back of splitting up our workload fairly, as I handled the shared responsibility well by acting decisively to give us enough time to complete our task. I held a real sense of pride in my contribution, as I was the individual within our group to make the ultimate decision of who would complete each section of the content plan. The outcome of our workload wasn't particularly beneficial to the client, but was well constructed as part of a subgroup. I have a genuine sense of investment within the subgroup to work effectively and as fairly as possible due to established social relationships. My overall experience of dividing our workload was largely positive, as I was glad that the entire decision process was completed with ease entirely between me and the other marketing and promotions leads. To me, this demonstrates a lack of reliance on the chairman to complete a specific task. However, it's also noteworthy that our overall output following the division of tasks wasn't an overwhelming success due to Yorkshire Cyclo-cross Association being unable to implement this into their daily operations. But this process was a great opportunity for me to demonstrate some leadership skills, and I believe that I had a positive impact on the function of our team. This embodies Adam's equity theory through how members of a group feel a sense of fairness when they believe that their input matches that of the others in the group. Essentially, an even contribution is vital. By making sure I gave myself the sections of the content plan that hadn't had much group input yet, I was trying to keep things balanced for the others, even if I wasn't consciously thinking about it in those terms at the time. I think the effort to keep things fair is probably a big reason why the three of us worked so well together and didn't run into any real conflict. It's also noteworthy to acknowledge the importance of being able to quickly organise and communicate with the other marketing and promotions leads. Due to my established social relationships with both of the other members in the team, the forming and norming stages of Tuckman's group dynamics were definitely bypassed already ahead of this. I believe that these existing social relationships were key to me working in a team efficiently and demonstrating fairness to the others in splitting a workload. Overall, I think I handled the process of dividing the workload up fairly well. By stepping up and making the decision about who would do which sections of the content plan, we were able to quickly start creating the plan and combine our work rather than collaboratively working on every section, which avoided any real conflicting ideas which could have caused disruptions, which I'm very proud of. The dynamic of our subgroup was genuinely positive, and I felt like we all had a real investment in doing a good job together. Although our workload has been fairly distributed, I was working efficiently within the team, and now I think that I should have slowed down the pace of our progress so we could look back and assess more thoroughly whether the task that had been assigned by the chairman was appropriate for Yorkshire Cyclo-cross and their capabilities. Due to how my involvement in equally sharing tasks with the other marketing and promotions leads was positive, I believe that I should be more vocal from an earlier point in future group tasks. I need to deliver more confidence in my capabilities to assign and manage the completion of tasks under consideration of the possible quality and appropriateness of the output. I would also possibly communicate to a greater extent with other members of the group outside of our subgroup, just to ensure that everyone's happy with their role and the amount of input that's been required of them. Fundamentally, I would like to improve my leadership input but maintain a balance between guiding others and making my own contribution to a group task. And that brings my reflective presentation to a close. I hope you've enjoyed that, and thank you very much for listening. You can find my references I've used throughout the presentation here on this slide.